But there's an idea that emerged in the West, and the idea is that the state is regulated by the ethic of the individual. And so that the individual has intrinsic value, and that value is predicated on the recognition of the individual's capacity to generate order out of chaos. And that's the identity with God that was implanted, so to speak, in human beings at the beginning of time, according to our founding, let's call them mythologies. There's something about that that's right. Now, if we lose that, we're going to suffer for it, man. We're going to suffer for it. And I've studied totalitarianism for a long time. I know what happens when things take a viciously communitarian twist. It is not pretty. And you know, people think our society is more, even the radical leftists who criticize it, think that our society is more robust and impervious to subversion and danger than it actually is. It's actually not. It's actually, we could lose it a hell of a lot more easily than we think. And it's got all sorts of flaws, and like, criticize away, but with a bit of gratitude, that would be nice. It's got all sorts of flaws, but we don't have anything better to put in its place. And when we tried a couple of different variations in the 20th century. Man, and that did not go very well. Now, if people want to bring that back, it's either because they don't know what happened, and they probably don't, because generally speaking, people's historical education is so dreadfully inadequate that it's actually, it's like a crime. Or they don't care, and what they're aiming for is trouble. And neither of those things are good. So, you know, I've been watching this politically correct thing develop for 3 decades. You know, it's popped its head up here and there. It happened really in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, but then it sort of faded away to some degree. But right now, man, it's back with a vengeance. You know, in Bill C-16 in Canada, that's going to pass. And that is the first piece of legislation ever put in place in Canada that compels speech. And the Justice Minister curses on her head. The Justice Minister is refusing to, and her coterie of minions are refusing to implement a perfectly reasonable amendment that was proposed by Senator Don Plett to reword the Canadian Bill of Rights to ensure that Bill C-16 doesn't interfere with free speech. And they refused to do it. Why? Because equity trumps everything. Equality trumps everything. And that's not good, to put it simply. That is not good. And so people need to wake up and see what's happening. And they need to start watching what their children are being taught. That the new policies of the Ontario Teachers Federation, as I said, I've got the acronym wrong, those should be scrapped. I would tell people, do not send your children to public schools. If you're going to send them to public schools, you better bloody well keep an eye on what they're being taught. And I would say that's particularly true for communities of relatively conservative immigrants and minorities. You know, I mean, historically they've been aligned, say, more with the Liberal Party in Canada because of its more tolerant attitude towards immigration. It's like, it's time for those relatively socially conservative ethnic immigration communities to wake up and realize that the people that they thought were their allies are not their allies at all. So, no, we're going too far down this road. It's not a good idea. And it's happening a lot faster than people think. So, it's time for people to wake up. Jesus, you know, I've talked to the Conservatives, the leadership, many of the people who ran for the leadership federally. I've talked to the provincial Conservatives in Ontario. The provincial Conservatives were too afraid to have me come and talk to their caucus. Think about that. They think I'm too, because, you know, their theory, this is Patrick Brown's strategy, is if they just shut the hell up and hide in a corner, Kathleen Wynne will flame out and they'll win the election. It's like, well, maybe and maybe not, but that's no strategy of courage. It's like the conservative types, even the liberals, the classic liberals, have to get out there and say, look, what's happening on the radical end of the political spectrum, that is not good. We need to do something about it. But they're too afraid. The conservatives are afraid that they will be targeted as individuals, mobbed by the social justice warriors online, and taken out. And so they don't say anything. It's not even the social conservatives who won't say anything. It's like mainstream liberals who won't say anything. Well, as soon as people, so now the journalists are censoring themselves, they've already told me that. The politicians are censoring themselves. It's like, what the hell? What's going on? And what's really awful about it is it's a very small minority of people who are basically producing this movement forward. It's probably no more than about 5% of the population. So, and the other thing that's so interesting is if you push back against them hard, they just fold. I can't even get the social justice types to debate me. They won't do it. Now, they don't believe in debate, so why would they debate? They only believe in power. But like when I went to Queen's University to talk to the law students there about Bill C-16, from what I gathered, all of the law professors were invited to debate me. Now think about it, I'm not a bloody lawyer, I'm no law professor. I'm talking about legislation. Like, a good lawyer should have been able to come out and just have twisted me into knots and sent me home in a cast. And they couldn't find a single bloody professor to come out there, so Bruce Pardy, who's a professor, had to come out and play devil's advocate. So there's no debate there, there's no discussion. So this small minority, they're well situated, they have a philosophically driven agenda, they're motivated personally by resentment and power, but there aren't that many of them, and they're bloody cowardly, and if you face them down, they'll run away. So I would say we should face them down before they continue to wreak the kind of havoc that they're already wreaking on our society. And we could certainly start with Kathleen Wynne and her coterie of radical postmodernists. So we should chase every single liberal, every single provincial liberal should be taken out of the Ontario legislation in the next election. That would be a good outcome. That would be a message. It's like, don't muck about with the structure of the family. There's a start. So, yeah, well. But the thing is, people are afraid. So the conservatives won't come out even come out and be conservative. So one of the things I've talked to them about, and I think I talked to 5 of the people who were involved in the leadership convention, was if you guys are afraid to be conservative, you've already lost. You're done. Like, you're just playing out an empty game. And they are. That's the policies they're pursuing. Patrick Brown won't come out and, like, what the hell? Kathleen Wynne, she should be hanging on with one finger. If that woman had an ounce of integrity, she would have resigned when her popularity fell below 10%. But she doesn't, and no one will take her on with regards to that. So, it's not good. I can tell you one thing that I've experienced. If you're not happy with the kind of policies that your company is putting in place, or the bureaucracy that you work in, or your government, or any of those things, if you're not happy about it, and you wait, the probability that you'll become more unhappy is extraordinarily high. If you come out and say something early on, you're taking a risk. But if you say something and you don't apologize and you hold your damn position, you can chase them back. That's been my experience. You don't apologize, and you don't soften what you have to say. But as far as I can tell, you've got a choice. You can wait around until things get worse and you're weaker, and you can wait till you're taken out, or you can stand up now and say what you have to say with a reasonable chance of success. That's how it looks to me.